Oil prices in the recent months has taken a sheer drop. How will that affect various industries coming out of this crisis that we're going through? Let's talk about that. Talk about how oil prices got to where they are and other things we can do to get through this situation. So, a little brief overview. We're going to use Wikipedia. I know it's not the best, but it has a very, very good overview on the 2020 Russia Saudi Arabia oil war and how we got into it. You can read more. I'll leave a link in the description of not only this article, but every article we talk about. Remember as well that a lot of these things I'm going to speak of are just my opinions, so make sure to formulate your own before you start buying. Anyways, the Russia-Saudi oil price war of 2020 is an economic war triggered in March 2020 by Saudi Arabia in response to Russia's refusal to reduce oil production in order to keep prices for oil at a moderate level. That's kind of the overview. So, what was going on? Russia and Saudi Arabia both wanted to be the world oil producer, and they did this by lowering costs in hopes of putting the other out of business. Well, here in America, we also make a lot of oil, but it's company owned oil, not country owned oil. So the companies here in America got stifled as well, as producers can buy oil from anywhere they want Russia, Saudi, companies in America. So companies in America also had to drop prices to keep up with it. Then we had the lovely virus we have going on hand, and oil usage dropped. People aren't driving, planes aren't flying, businesses aren't open to use that oil that's being produced. We ran out of reserves, places to keep the crude oil. Production slowed down a little bit, but even at like close to our lowest setting of oil production that we can do, we're still producing more than we can use right now. And that led to, on April 20th, oil prices actually inverting. Producers, well, in theory, producers of oil had to pay refineries to take it. In theory, that's not actually how it worked because of how contracts work. So it was investors that thought they could make money off the contracts had to sell them. Otherwise, they were getting oil shipped to their apartment, and that's not very good. You can read more about this oil war below. Check the description. It's a very good read. It's very interesting. But we can see here that the oil price before all of this war was around $60 a barrel, and now we're about $23 a barrel. That's a 66% reduction in cost. And for a while on last month contract, it inverted to almost negative $40 per barrel. That's incredible. So let's talk about a few industries and how they'll get through. Well, let's first talk about airlines. We can see here, this is IATA, one of the leading industries in aviation travel. And we can see the jet fuel price. Now versus 1 week ago, it's up 16%. Still, per barrel, only about $20. Versus 1 month ago, we're down 33%, and versus 1 year ago, we're down over 75% on the price of jet. That's phenomenal. That means if your jet used to take, let's say, make it easy, it's a small jet, $1,000 to fill up, it now only costs you about $250 to fuel up your jet. But how does that affect the industry? Well, let's talk about the producers of airplanes. Boeing. I have pulled up here the 737 MAX, which kind of puts the forefront of the issue on Boeing. If anybody knows, there's been a huge issue with the 737 when it comes to reliability, safety, and, suspension of service. That's a bit of an issue. But the Boeing 737 MAX kind of highlights the point of airlines buying new planes. Old planes hold just as many, they fly just as far, they're just as simple, if not simpler, to maintain, honestly, but they burn more fuel. The 737, according to Aviation Benefits, delivers close to a 20% increase in fuel economy. But when fuel prices have dropped 75%, and you're in a time where you don't want to put out any sort of capital expenditures of buying a new aircraft, do you think you're going to buy that 737 MAX? Or are you just going to run the old plane for another couple years to get through it and to put that money that would have gone towards the plane back into growing your business as quickly as possible. I think that's the option. I don't think this is necessarily a death wish for Boeing, but I think it's going to be some trying times. Between the last couple years trying to get this plane to actually do as it does in the picture, and now through airline companies, in my opinion, likely not buying new airplanes for a short while, Boeing might be a bad situation. While we're here, why don't we look up the Boeing stock, see how it's done? All right, in front of me, we have the Boeing stock. We can see it's actually up 3.2% for the day. But if we look at since this crisis started, it's dropped nearly 60% in value. And on top of that, if we look at a long term, we can see, 60% in value drop. We had a nice incline, and you can see here, this is roughly when the 737 Maxes came out. And I believe right here is when they started having issues. And it's dropped since then 70%. That's a big return if you believe Boeing can make it through. But I don't know if they can ever be back to where they were through all the troubling times they've had. But there's more industries than just airlines. Oh, here's a little more. This is an article from Business Insider on how cheap oil is killing demand for Boeing's new fuel-efficient jets. And it talks a little more about what I talked about. Keeping their older fleets on longer is something that will happen due to weak oil prices. Again, you can keep a plane for another couple years that burns 20%, 30% more fuel, and is in the end cheaper than buying a brand new plane for millions and millions of dollars. But there's more industries. Let's talk about correlation between fuel prices and auto sales. Well, this article through CBT Automotive Network talks about prices are up on when prices go up, larger vehicle sales go down, and when prices go down on oil, larger vehicle sales go up. So what does this mean for various car companies? Well, companies that are all about fuel efficient cars such as Nissan, Honda, and even companies like Kia and Hyundai are probably going to have some struggles during this time. But other auto manufacturers that have cool, large, faster vehicles like Ford with their F-150s and the Expeditions, or Toyota with their Tacomas and Tundras that everybody loves, or even luxury manufacturers, think Lexus, Mercedes, Audi, they may have a better time with selling cars coming out of this. But we'll have to see how it goes, how long this shutdown lasts, things of that nature. But some companies might do really good out of this, but other companies might have trouble selling their cars if fuel prices say next to nothing. We also have cruise lines. Cruise lines have made a huge, huge drop since this began, largely in part to not being able to cruise. But cruise ships take a lot of fuel, and coming out of this situation, if fuel prices are still cheap, it could help them, keep low costs, boost people coming on their ships, and grow their return to normality quicker. But how much fuel does a cruise line take? Is this a huge discount for them, or is it just a small one? Well, we can see here Harmony of the Seas, the ship shown above, has two 16-cylinder engines that both each burn about 1,400 gallons an hour. That's 2,400 gallons an hour. And if you look here, they say it can burn up to 66,000 gallons a day. Before this happened, if you were buying fuel at $2.50, $3 an hour a gallon, that's over $100,000 a day, almost $200,000 a day in fuel. Well, now if you can buy that for $1 a gallon, maybe even less depending, that's a substantial gain in cost. In the situation with this boat, they have 6,700 passengers on board, and they burn 66,000 gallons a day. That means each passenger is roughly responsible for 10 gallons of fuel. If you can save $2 per gallon, Well, that's $20 per guest that they save across a 5-day cruise. That's $100 off that they can either make in profit or they can do a cost reduction on the actual trip itself. But this highlights a larger thing going on when it comes to oil prices falling. Airlines will be able to fly for cheaper, people will be able to drive their cars and travel places for cheaper, and cruise ships will be cheaper. And this leads me to think that a lot of travel industry, if oil prices stay down, will be able to make a huge boom. But manufacturers of ships, boats, cars, some of them will struggle because there's no need. There's no cost benefit to getting a fuel efficient new plane, car, boat, anything of the sort. So why would you spend that money? That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think below. I'll leave article links for all of these, and always remember to do your own research. Come up with your own opinions, and let me know what you find. Thanks for watching.